Hey folks, this is Kalani. We've had a few weeks to play about with the new corrupted gear system that completely replaced Titanforging for this last patch of Battle for Azeroth. With both systems pushing the limits of what your gear can offer you, it's going to be interesting to compare how they both add to the gameplay aspect of gearing up and in some cases take away from that very same objective. Gearing up in general with Titanforging was a bit strange because while you could create a best in slot list for yourself, if you happen to get lucky and get a super Titanforge, that just threw your planning out of the window, in kind of a good way. But if all it takes is a Titanforge for you to stop caring about your gearing up plan, is it worth planning your gear at all, or do you just go with the flow and hope you get lucky? There was a lot of frustration with the Titanforging system, and that's why the dev team decided to replace it with the corrupted gear system. But is this really an improvement? How does corrupted gear shape up when compared to the Titanforging system that we had before? Let's break it all down. For starters, both systems aim to accomplish the same task, to scale an item's power level past what it can usually be. For Titanforging, that came in the form of simply increasing the item level of a piece of gear up to a predetermined cap. So if you got really lucky, your normal raiding loot could be better than mythic raiding loot. If you got super lucky, your world quest loot could be better than mythic raiding loot. The idea was pretty simple in comparison to corrupted gear, but it did its job. Thanks to Titanforging, you never really knew how good your item could be before it actually drops, and if an item that isn't really all that great for you because it had bad stats or whatever, if it Titanforges to the item level cap, well, now it's actually really good for you. Corrupted gear is a lot more complex. Each corrupted effect varies wildly in power level, and then each corrupted effect actually has several tiers of power which add to the scaling potential of an item. The result is kind of the same though. You never know how powerful an item is going to be until you actually loot it, and an item that might not be good for you could end up being crazy powerful depending on what corrupted effect it comes with. So we're still in the same position in that regard, but there are some key differences. I still don't really understand why the dev team decided replacing an RNG system that everyone disliked because of its RNG with another RNG system would ever be a good idea. The corrupted gear system actually has more RNG involved, and that's even after they took away one layer of it. With Titanforging, you just kept rolling a dice to decide whether or not your item would Titanforge again, and when you lost your roll, that's the item level that the Titanforge would go to. For the chaps who got the max item level rewards, you just didn't lose a roll. With corrupted effects, you have to first get a corrupted item, then you have to get a good corrupted effect, and then you have to get a high tier of that corrupted effect. Only then will you have a maxed out item. The main issue that I've seen people talk about regarding corrupted gear isn't necessarily related to the different tiers of power though, so maybe that's a less of an issue when you take everything into account. The main problem I see players talking about is the power range of different corrupted effects. The ones like Infinite Stars, Twilight Devastation, and Mind Flay might stick out to you because these are the effects that everyone wants to get their hands on. Other effects like Avoidance based on your haste, gaining more versatility, or the dreaded Void Ritual just can't compare when it comes to pure throughput. And let's be honest, that's what most players are actually looking at. Does this item give me more DPS, and how does it do compared to the best corrupted effects that I could have gotten? I mean, you shouldn't really compare your gear to the very best stuff constantly, because a corrupted effect should give you a DPS increase no matter what, but it's always hard seeing everyone running around with Infinite Stars and you get another Void Ritual, especially when those effects end up being a crazy percentage of their overall damage done. These effects can literally carry a DPS almost single-handedly, so when you don't get them, it's easy to get frustrated. So the corrupted system has higher highs for sure when compared to Titanforging. Getting a maxed out Infinite Stars is going to carry you a lot more than getting a maxed Titanforge item ever would have, but that also means that you have lower lows with the RNG. Sometimes you get a corrupted effect that isn't even worth using, so you just cleanse it off. In that instance, you didn't really get anything at all when you could have had this amazing proc. That's probably the worst part of this system as a whole. They created another slot machine with way better rewards, but if you end up being unlucky, you probably feel more frustrated than you ever would have if you weren't getting lucky with Titanforges. They made the gambling aspect of gearing up significantly worse. There is one very interesting difference when comparing the RNG of these two systems though. At lower item levels, the corrupted gear system actually benefits you much more than the Titanforging system would have. I'm talking about normal dungeons, heroic dungeons, world quests, emissary gear, even looking for raid gear. With Titanforging, the cap was always the goal, right? That meant that the lower the item level you were starting with, the more rolls you had to win to get the best item. Titanforging a 415 piece of gear up to 475 would have taken a lot of luck, but the corrupted system doesn't actually change based on item level. You have the same chances to get a rank 3 infinite star on a 415 pair of braces as you do on a pair of 485 braces. It's literally no different. It's the same RNG steps, which means that your gear almost doesn't matter. I recently won the lottery on my mage. I was running heroic Mechagon over and over to try and get the braces that I really need to play fire properly. Without these braces, your combustion window isn't as powerful and the item level of the braces doesn't matter at all because it's the effect that you're really after. So when they finally dropped for me, my jaw also dropped to the floor. They came loaded with a rank 3 infinite stars corrupted effect and a socket to boot. Needless to say, the resident mages in my guild were quite jealous and I was told that I basically won't ever replace these braces on my mage. They're item level 415 and the only way I can replace them at all is to get the exact same braces with the exact same corrupted effect and a socket but at a higher item level. Somehow I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But this doesn't just apply to my mage's braces. You can get Echoing Void, Infinite Stars, or Twilight Devastation from World Quest loot, from emissary boxes, from heroic dungeons. If the loot can corrupt, you can get an item that exceeds the power level of even mythic raiding loot, and it almost doesn't even matter what item level your gear actually is. That is super interesting to me, and it kind of reminds me of benthic gear a little. Several pieces of benthic gear were best in slot for the Nazjatar raid and zone, without any real competition whatsoever. Because of how you acquired benthic gear, anyone and everyone could have had the best in slot items if they poured enough time into the Nazjatar world quests. Now we're in a similar position where anyone lucky enough could get an item that they will never replace, but from any source in the game. I know that the dev team recently made a change to make these effects scale with item level to try and reduce the effectiveness of lower item level corrupted gear, but because of just how powerful some of these effects are, the only way to replace those items is still by getting the same effect on a higher item level piece of gear. Just item level alone is not enough to compete. You have to get a higher item level with the same corruption effect. That's going to take a lot of luck. So your corrupted items, even at lower item levels, are still incredibly powerful and difficult to replace. In that sense, corrupted effects have made the actual pieces of gear matter way less than Titanforging ever did, and now item level doesn't even matter as much as it did with Titanforging. Gearing up right now really only boils down to, did I get the good corrupted effect or not? The item doesn't necessarily matter, the item level doesn't matter, only the corrupted effect. That could be a good thing if you don't enjoy pushing endgame to get the higher item level pieces of gear, but for anyone who loves to mythic raid or really push mythic plus dungeons, suddenly their gearing up path has become very convoluted and twisted. It's actually led to raiders clearing their map of gear world quests just in case something gets a lucky corrupted effect. Clearing multiple difficulties of the raid suddenly becomes worthwhile again, all in an effort to hunt down the perfect corrupted piece. Another issue that corrupted gear makes significantly worse is the need to sim every piece of new gear that drops. You literally cannot just look at a piece of corrupted gear and decide whether or not it's an upgrade. You have to take it to a sim site to see just what this piece of gear is going to do for you. I seem to remember the dev team not wanting that to happen, but every single part of the corrupted gear system makes that issue much worse. Personally, I'm going to sim almost everything anyway. I actually enjoy that kind of thing, but for anyone who doesn't and still wants to know how impactful these new pieces of gear will be, simming really is the only option. Titanforging wasn't as bad, but honestly you still had to sim to find out if a high Titanforge with bad stats was going to be better than your normal item with good stats, so it's not like this is a new issue at all. Corrupted gear was also supposed to be more exciting and involved when compared to Titanforging. Titanforging was a case of, oh cool, more item levels. Sweet. Corrupted effects were meant to be more than that, something you can get excited for and something that could change up how you play, but every single corrupted effect is passive. It's just extra damage, a lot of extra damage in some cases, but it doesn't really compare to something like the Legion legendaries, which actually changed your rotation and how you play. Corrupted effects are just as passive as Titanforging item levels. They don't really change anything. Hunting for or getting corrupted gear is arguably more exciting than Titanforges though, but that excitement comes from getting the super powerful effects and what they're going to do for you, not from getting an item that will change anything about your playstyle. So I guess corrupted effects are still more exciting, but they're definitely not more involved, and as we established earlier, with the higher highs of the corrupted system, you also get lower lows, so it's exciting to get the good stuff, but even more disappointing when you don't. What I really don't understand is why the dev team didn't put their lessons learned from Legion into play with this system. A lot of the issues are almost copy-paste from the Legion legendary system. This was eventually solved with a vendor that let you purchase whatever you wanted. Why don't we have an achievable way to work towards our own corrupted gear on our own terms? That could lift this system up so much, it's actually ridiculous that we don't have the option right now. Imagine when you cleanse some of your corrupted gear, you got an item that allowed you to work towards corrupting a piece of gear on your own. Maybe it's a bottle of corruption or essence of the void or whatever it has to be. Collect 10 of them and you can corrupt an item of your choice. That cuts down one of the several RNG steps, and even if you don't get the corruption you want, at least you're able to work towards another one, and another one, and another one. That's the kind of grind a lot of players could probably get behind, because it lets them set goals and see their progress towards them. Maybe have other special items that hone in onto specific corrupted effects, or allow us to upgrade a certain effect to its highest tier. There's so much missing in this system when it comes to meaningful choice for the players, I just don't get it. They could have even tied every single type of content in the new patch to a currency that lets you corrupt items. We're raiding the Black Empire and Nyalotha. Why not bring back a little corruption to help us on our way? We're delving into horrific visions. You know what there's probably plenty of in there? Corruption. Our dailies take part in void-infested zones. We take a trip into a small vision every day. There are tentacles literally everywhere. Why can't we carve a little bit off and stick it on our helmet? Even from a longevity point of view, this kind of system makes sense. If you want to keep us busy for the next year or so, giving us something to collect and manage would be way more fulfilling than just dangling another carrot in front of our face and say, you can have it, but only if you get really, really lucky. Keep trying. All in all, I think the corrupted gear system is better in some ways, but a lot worse in others. We can get super powerful items, which is kind of what I wanted from this system. Give us something to really break the rules in the last patch, but right now that also means that people are farming any source of gear they can use because the effects are so powerful. Item level and even actual items don't matter as long as you get the right corrupted effect. Getting the bad corrupted effects feels frustrating, which you didn't really have as much with the Titanforging system, and there's no way to mitigate the waves of RNG. The only saving grace really is the raid weapons, which have a guaranteed corruption effect, so that gives raiders a bit of an edge in the corrupted game, but if you don't raid, well then you're just out of luck. Having a system that allows us to work towards corrupting our own gear would have taken a lot of the pain out of corrupted gear as a whole, but I guess we'll have to wait half a year for them to implement that, like we had to wait an entire expansion to get the legendary vendor in Legion. I think on the whole this system is probably marginally better than Titanforging, even with all of the negatives, mainly because it has the potential to be so much better. It's just being held back right now. Give us a way to corrupt our own gear and I think we'll be golden, but until then I'll just keep hoping for those awesome effects and feeling bad for all of my guildies who are clearing world quests. What do you think of the corrupted gear system so far, and do you think it's better or worse than Titanforging? Have you gotten any good corrupted effects so far, and do you think that's going to influence your opinion of the system as a whole? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.